I stood there, phone in hand, heart racing as my mind spun with emotions. The stark words from Tonya rang in my ears. Your mom can't come to the funeral. It was my grandmother's funeral. And even though I had tried to brace myself for the complexities of family grief, that statement shattered whatever resolve I had left. You see, my name is Jess, I'm 26, and ever since my parents divorced when I was just 4, my family dynamics have been anything but simple. My mother, Claire, with her fiery spirit and resilience, was my backbone. Katie, my younger sister, had fallen under the influence of my stepmother, Tonya. The tensions had crept in silently over the years, fueled by resentment and unspoken grievances. This latest family conflict felt almost cyclical. Just 5 years earlier, we had buried my paternal grandfather. My mom had stood up to speak, paying tribute with heartfelt memories. That moment was spoiled by Tonya and her sister Lily, giggling in the back, my mother's grief belittled as a joke. I could still hear my father's ultimatum that day, his voice laced with anger as he told them to stop. It hurt. It hurt to see my mom on the receiving end of their ridicule at the most vulnerable moment of her life. Fast forward to 2 months ago, when my maternal grandfather passed. I was devastated, of course. When Katie called my dad, demanding that Tonya stay away from the funeral, my heart sank even lower. My dad had seemingly felt torn, caught between being a good husband to Tonya and honoring my mom, who had shared a life's worth of moments with my grandfather. It was a mess. Now it was my paternal grandmother's turn to leave this world, and in all honesty, I was bracing myself for another family showdown. I loved my grandmother dearly. She was a constant in my chaotic life, showering me with love and affection since I came into this world. I felt a knot tighten in my chest at the thought of facing that gathering with the looming tension and heartbreak. Jess, Tonya's voice cut through my thoughts as she excitedly detailed the funeral plans. I felt a wave of conflict wash over me as she bluntly said, "But just so you know, your mom is not welcome." I clicked off the call before I could say something I would regret, the hotness rising in my chest making it nearly impossible to breathe. The moment I connected with my dad later that day, I braced myself for a battle. "Dad, this doesn't make sense. Mom deserves to be there, especially for someone she knew for so long," I argued, my voice trembling slightly, embodying a whirlwind of fear and determination. Yet my father's hesitation was palpable. "Katie, she just doesn't want her there," he finally admitted, guilt marring his expression. It struck a nerve and my frustration erupted. But what about what I want? What about what Mom wants? I was losing my grip on civility, and how could I not? This felt like an emotional tug of war, my heart caught in the crossfire. Days rolled on with unanswered questions swirling around me as my mind caught fire like a match struck in a dark room. My grandmother, my support system throughout my life, was leaving me under the guise of family drama. I felt alone. My best friend suggested bringing my mom anyway, but that felt like a betrayal to the very essence of family respect that had been ingrained in me since childhood. Then it hit me. Was I really going to allow Katie's childish demand to dictate where my mom could or couldn't be during a time of mourning? I thought about my mom sitting at home, contemplating loss, grieving her own father, and yearning for the connection she had with my paternal grandmother. It felt wrong to exclude her. I lay awake that night, contemplating my wedding down the road, and how I dreaded the notion that my family gathering would become a battlefield all over again. I knew in my heart that if my dad's decisions continued to be swayed by Tonya, it would set a precedent moving forward. Would we always be forced to choose sides? How was I supposed to let that continue? So here I now stood, reflecting on my decisions, my loyalty stretched thin between family ties and moral values. Should I simply show up with my mom and bring the storm? I could see every possible face turn toward us in unified shame and shock. Or I could make a stand, claiming the space I felt entitled to as her daughter. Then it hit me, an old saying I had learned through the years. A family should stand by each other in times of strife and sorrow. In that moment, I desired nothing more than to embrace my mom, stand side by side, and mourn together, the way families should. As I took a deep breath, pondering my next steps, I asked myself, would I be the asshole for bringing my mother to my grandmother's funeral despite the objections of my sister and stepmom? Or maybe just maybe, I'd be finally finding my voice and my resolution amidst the turmoil. I've shared my story, and I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my place? Would you have stood up for family ties or respected the boundaries laid out by others? How would you navigate this intricate web of emotions?